and I started to tell, until you threw me under the bus, I started to tell about what I had sent around to select friends and family members.
Oh.
Actually, I think you guys' junk mail caught my email because I'm on the do not admit list.
Oh, yeah. Well, that very well could be. So's court, so don't worry about it.
But in any event, what I sent around to folks was a short article that was authored by Justice Raul, former Florida Supreme Court Justice Raul Quintero. He was appointed by Governor Jeb Bush and is widely recognized as a conservative jurist. This is not the type of judge that some conservatives like to rail about as being an activist judge. He is very much a conservative judge, appointed by Jeb Bush, so he has all the credentials for those who sometimes are suspicious of the judiciary. Right. And he wrote a letter encouraging people to get educated about merit retention and to keep the Florida Supreme Court justices that are on the ballot this year.
Which court agreed with?
Sure, and he also expressed his dismay for that for the judiciary becoming more and more politicized, and for the first time in history, as far as we know, one of the major political parties of the state came out against retaining the 3 Florida Supreme Court justices on the Florida Supreme Court.
What was their basis behind that? What was their reasoning?
They didn't like some of the decisions that these judges had made. Okay. They were considered and identified as, quote, activist judges. And it's always somewhat amusing to hear complaints about these so-called activist judges, because what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Judges who have a more fluid reading of the law, and those who have a more, I guess, static reading of the law, end up either helping or hurting conservatives, liberals, depending on how those particular viewpoints are applied. And I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
What is one of the most cited U.S. constitutional amendments by conservatives? Second Amendment, right?
Yeah, Second Amendment.
Gun rights.
Yeah, obviously.
And the reading of the Second Amendment that allows those gun rights activists to avoid any sort of controls or very, very limited controls on gun rights is due to a liberal reading of the Second Amendment. You know, the Second Amendment on its face appears to apply to a well-armed militia, i.e. Some sort of organized and appointed folks to bear arms, whereas it was read as by the U.S. Supreme Court many, many, many years ago to apply to citizens in general. And so that type of, quote, activist judging actually helps the conservative cause of today.
Well, conservatives, I forget how it goes, but those who are conservative and those who are liberal, it's changed over the years.
Certainly.
Who's who.
Absolutely. And that's why I think it's appropriate for judges to have leeway to interpret the Constitution and laws in light of the circumstances of the day. I mean, I just don't think that you can compare things from the 1700s to things of today.
Except when we talk about Tommy being 1700s, you know, and comparing them to today, he's a lot different guy.
Jay, these judges, how long have they been on the bench?
Well,
on the Supreme Court.
There are 3. There's Justice Pariente, Justice Lewis, and Justice Quince, and right. Both of them have been on there for, or excuse me, all 3 of them have been on there for at least 8 years, and I think longer than that.
I think Justice Lewis has been there a little bit longer, because I can remember hearing him speak when I was with the Boys and Girls Club.
Because I believe that Lewis and Pariente were appointed by Lawton Childs, and I believe Quince was appointed by Jeb Bush.
Yeah, I was going to say, Lawton Childs, that goes back a few.
Yes. So, but, I mean, they've been on there a long time.
Yeah. So it's time to have a change, right? Essentially.
You're dialing the wrong number, Gino. 206-1580 or toll-free.
I've got Gino riled
up. Yeah,
he's something. 888-441-1580. We're going to take a break right now. We'll be back after sports and our sponsors.